Dr. Maja Göpel, Director of Research at the New Institute, a political economist, an important voice for the sustainable transformation of our societies, author of books such as The Great Mindshift. Mrs. Göpel also spoke in Brussels Economic Forum at the beginning of this, in September, I believe. And I believe that she's a very strong voice from the political economy on how to transform our economies, how to be more sustainable, and confront these transitions that we really need to do, and we really need to do as soon as possible. Mrs. Göpel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you very much for everyone contributing, and thank you for the invitation to come here and join. What I've been doing is try to listen carefully to different points, and what I would like to do is take a viewpoint on trying to make linkages between all the different things that you've said to a certain degree from a point of view that is basically what my work focuses on, which is the role of paradigm shifts and mind shifts in order for us to really be able to see the connections between lots and lots of the small little projects that we've now seen that are, for me, when we think about we want to achieve sustainable development goals, the countries have agreed to that. So in the essence, those are the nucleus and the seeds of the new. And then to also go into what Andrea has been saying about the defining and the reference frameworks, especially in economics, that we then have to update to a new reality if that reality is changing so much, so that we know about the damage on ecological systems of our former way of doing things. And we do know that it wasn't good enough to follow economic efficiency and growth gains, but we've lost a lot on the social side and the social coherence side as well. And so this is why I think also the point that Bernard was making with this awakening and an alliance spinning has a lot to do with how we speak about the things that we deem possible, desirable, and also productive in the true economic sense. And I think the first thing to think about is when we are talking about a social economy or now a green economy, to just be more outspoken about saying what this actually means is that until now we have a not social enough economy and we do have a brown economy. So we are very clear if those positive framings are the deviation from the status quo, we should be very clear at pointing out that what we have right now is neither normal nor something to go back to after COVID and with all the recovery funds, but something to finally let go of and to be more courageous about this and to say, maybe that's what we can really agree on, that the model that we have pursued that worked for a longer period of time, but has had those collateral damages that we see very clearly now, has to let go of. And then there is much more space for the different alternatives that want to emerge and that then can do also experimentation and culturally embedded, diversified solutions to creating the value that in the European Union and beyond should be created when we think about economics as a relationship, as a productive relationship between people and planet. And this for me is one of the most important things, that we shift away from a thinginess and a monetary way of looking at it all, but it is relationships, and it can find expressions in very different forms of indicators and measurements. And this is why I think it is so important to also understand how much COVID, in terms of this mind shift and the way to look at what was really the most important thing that people felt was the most important to protect, were very good guiding stars into saying those should probably also be the sectors that we want to protect first. And we've had here housing, and we've had here food, and we had here health provision, and we had here the support of those that can't meet their needs on their own right now. So the relationship side also there really being very important. So to always be clear, as we had so much trade-off talk, the trade-off between social goals and environmental goals, that we have very clearly seen that those are two sides of the same story. And they are really the two sides of a progress idea of the 21st century. It has to be about trade-ins. And we have to find the economic incentives and the governing frameworks, and the VAT was just one of the examples. We have to abolish those solutions that humans have made at times where we didn't see all the consequences maybe enough, but now those are the trade-off making tools that we have installed, and they're human made, so we can take them away so we can get to the trade-in solutions or between the social and the environmental. And this is why I think some terms like the planetary health agenda, for example, was a huge step forward, because it came out of a new perspective, out of the health workers of the world, 40 million of them represented in a statement to the World Health Organization, clearly saying if you want to protect people, you want to protect the environments they live in, because we are connected to the environment. The air we breathe has particles that sit in our lung that make us risk patients for COVID. So it is really about understanding this connectivity between humans, their environment, and amongst each other. And the virus there also really helped us to understand this vicinity and the importance of understanding those relationships. And this is why I think what Julianne was saying about the resilience ideas is what has to be in business models. And it is natural for this community to say economies should be serving people and be cognizant of the planet, but to really then also say which are the business models that can help this and which are the business models that have driven us into the trade-off relationships. So how do we reshape what should be more the backbone business models of our societies rather than exceptions to the normality that is not allowing for this integration as well? And I think one of the reports I found interesting came out from the JRC. Now I'm speaking from a science point of view on resilience. So how can we work with this term resilience before it evaporates again from the discourse? Because it has been so important there, because also the resilience of having diversified solutions, multiple embedded ones, so that one shock doesn't impact the whole system. And we have creativity on delivering on the core functions of a system. As a knowledge base, diversity in itself is a value when you think about having resilient systems. And their report on from the Joint Research Center did differentiate between the sources. So how do we make sure that we have buffers, for example, in our health systems, in our care systems, so on the social side, but also on the environmental side, so that the provisioning of the sources for running the economy are not too much run down. Then the production processes, how do we organize those? How do we make sure that, and I think the example of the financial system with diversified banks, etc., has been a very strong argument there in 28. So how do we make sure production processes are organized so they can be resilient? And also the outcomes then, obviously, to make sure that we constantly update the solutions, the human-made intermediary means, so that we're not sacrificing the outcomes, so that we're not going back on having achieved certain social standards and in the protection of the environment in order to save an economy. Because if an economy can't serve the health or the well-being of the people, whilst not running down the resources of doing that in the future, what is an economy for then? And to just be more outspoken about this, why should we have an economy that is not supporting the well-being of its people, is sacrificing resources for future generations? And this is why I think this linking between the Green Deal framework and that being a social deal at the same time is crucial, so that we don't fall into the place of letting some actors that would like to keep the status quo in the trade-off regime and to tell us, when we also talk about what kind of growth do we want, where is consumerism leading us in rich societies, or you want to take away the development point of view or possibilities from the global south of the people that don't have enough material satisfaction. Obviously, that's not what we're talking about. So how do we newly define terms like value creation? And there are some things on the horizon, like a new reporting scheme for businesses in the next year. So value creation really at the core of business models, as is normal here, should be a standard that all the other business should look at too. How do we conceptualize wealth and well-being in a new way so that the competitiveness of Europe is more about regenerative economies and thus more resilient economies? And the last 2 points I would like to reframe is productivity, so that we have really the social and the environmental aspects of productivity in there as well, not just economic productivity. And investment in itself is an interesting term because it means to invest into something, and what we are calling investment quite often, I think it was mentioned really well before by Andrea and others, is an extraction of surplus value to places that are not here. So how, with playing with those words, we really put meaning to what we say where we're going, and then change the human-made frameworks of which we're trying to govern so that we can marry the green and the social. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maja, for being a contributor today. It's an honor for us to have you on board with, because I mean, it's obvious that you are a key actor in producing ideas on this sustainable translation. So thanks for your intervention.